All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Levine. I'm Cornerstone's commission and technical specialist. And today we're going to be going over some things about the internet, specifically how to use a few different browsers, the way to transfer over your bookmarks and some other important things when you choose to switch a browser, and just some general tips for staying safe online and how to know if the site you're going to is secure and maybe what you need to click. So without much further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. But first, just a little bit of housekeeping. First, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to put it in the question box. I might get to it immediately. I might get to it at the end of the presentation. But if you have a question that's really pertinent to what's being discussed, then I'll probably answer it at that moment. If I think it's something that would benefit more at the end, then I'll answer it then. Also, if you'd rather not type the question and have it answered by me, directly to everyone, that's fine too. You can give me a call after the presentation at 513-487-5390, or you can send me an email at tlevine@crnstone.com. And there's no need to write this down immediately. I'll have this slide up at the end of the presentation as well. Also, don't forget, we are launching our new view of AGB tomorrow. AGB is our broker compensation portal. It's where many of you are going to log in to get your compensation statements right now. But we will have a new view and some new instructions for how to access those statements. It's pretty intuitive, and I think the new look will be really good. You should be able to access it after noon tomorrow, so definitely give that a look. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to our AGB support team. Our inbox is AGB questions or AGB support. Yeah, it's AGB support at crnstone.com, or you can send us an email through our requests at www.crnstone.com/AGB. It should be at the bottom of the page. And last but not least, before we get started, don't forget to register for our cash incentive program. It's for group and individual sales between January 1st of this year, 2022, and December 31st of 2022. Any new business you write goes toward your total amounts written, and you earn points to bring you closer to a $7,000 cash prize possibility. So definitely you'll want to do that if you haven't registered already. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And to kick us off, I just wanted to bring up Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is kind of the base internet browser that came on pretty much every Windows PC, including Windows 10 when it started, which is what we're using. But it's actually being phased out. And if I pull it up, I'm going to open up the Internet Explorer app here. Then one of the first things you'll see if you haven't opened up new tabs or anything like that, and I'm just loading it here. It looks like it just took away my notice, but it'll send you something like switch to Microsoft Edge and get a faster, more modern web experience. And the reason for that is after the 15th of this month, Internet Explorer will no longer be supported by Microsoft. You'll still be able to use the browser. It'll still, be something you can work with, but it's not going to be something that's utilized by pretty much any website. You'll start to see a lot of random errors as you go out online, and it's a real concern. The easiest thing that you could do to help kind of mitigate this is to move all your bookmarks over to a new browser now. And that's one of the things we're going to show you how to do today. First off, if you want to export information, there are a few different ways to do it. The first is to find your new browser, download it, install it, and most of them have utilities to transfer over all of your previously stored data from Internet Explorer. But in case the web browser you choose does not, there is a manual way to do that. So we're going to cover real quick how to export your bookmarks into an HTML file and your cookies into a text file. And those are the two things that are most important for you to transfer over. What you're going to want to do is open up Internet Explorer and then click on this gear icon in the upper right. That gear icon is Internet Explorer settings. And what you're going to do is you're going to go down to Internet Options. Internet Options will open up this submenu right here. And that kind of goes through all the different sort of settings and different features that Internet Explorer could have offered. I say could have mostly because it's being phased out. You'll want to then go to, where would it be? Sorry, it's been a while since I've done this. I believe it would be actually under favorites. So we're going to go to the favorite star and then click on this drop down, then hit import and export. That'll open up the import export wizard, and that will let you choose which files you want to pull out of Internet Explorer. We're going to hit export to a file, hit next, and it'll give you 3 different things that you can export: your favorites, cookies, or feeds. I'm going to go ahead and do my favorites and cookies. Feeds is something that most people don't tend to take advantage of in Internet Explorer. It's really more of a developer end kind of issue. But favorites and cookies are really what I'd recommend if you're going to try to move it to a browser that doesn't have an automatic transfer kind of protocol. Then it'll kind of show you your folder layout for how you can export. I always just leave it at the top favorites option, and most people don't organize their favorites folders. So that's probably what you'll want to click. Then it'll tell you where you want to export your favorites to. And my recommendation, if you're just transferring over to a new browser, is to actually save it to your desktop. It's a very easy way to know where everything is saved. And you're going to have to know where you're exporting things to in order to put it into your new browser. The way I figure out where I'm saving things to is I hit this browse icon right up here that I'm circling with my cursor. And then I'm making sure that it's going to the PC, desktop, and then I'm going to name this file IE Bookmarks. And then I'm going to hit save. And then next. Then it'll prompt you for where I want to save the cookies. And I'm going to save this to the desktop as well. I'm going to do that by hitting browse. And if you weren't already on desktop, it's probably under this PC, desktop. And then you can name your file. I'm going to use IE cookies. And then I'm going to hit save again and export. Then it'll tell you you finished exporting that information. The other thing you're probably going to want to do is you're going to want to move over all your old pre-saved internet passwords and usernames. And there is a very easy way to do this, but I'm only going to go partway through. And that's because if I do this any further, it'll actually show you all of the stored browsing data and usernames and passwords on my PC that's stored through Windows. So I don't really want to go all the way with that, but that's what I was starting to do before. You're going to click on the gear icon, go to Internet Options, Content, and then right here under Autocomplete, you're going to go to Settings. It'll prompt you up here for what you want Internet Explorer to actually save. And that could be usernames and passwords, or prompt it to ask you before saving them. And there are a lot of other things that it can save as well. Ours are partly managed by our organization, so I don't have all the options enabled, but you might if you're using a home PC. Then you can go to Manage Passwords here. And when you click Manage Passwords, it'll pop up with web credentials. That'll show all of the saved web credentials from Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge. They're actually stored as part of Windows, which is a little wonky, but because they're pre-built in browsers, that kind of makes sense. If you click on the drop down here, it'll show you, a web address, and this is a pre-made one that I already did. Just for this sample, but all of your web credentials will be under here. And if you want it to show the password, you click Show, enter your Windows password, and it'll show you your password for that website. That's just a very easy way to grab your usernames and passwords when you're moving over to a new browser from Internet Explorer. so I thought I'd mention it. Once you're done exporting all of your information, you can close out of Internet Explorer, and I'd recommend getting used to using a different browser at this point. There are 3 different ones that I'm going to be kind of going through. There's Google Chrome, which I personally don't use, and I'm going to get to why I don't recommend you use it, but a lot of people do, so we're going to cover it here. Then there's also Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge is the new default browser that's going to come with Windows 10, Windows 11, and all of the new Windows operating systems that they're going to make ad infinitum. So if you're coming from Internet Explorer, that's the browser I'd recommend, just because it's easy, it's pre-installed, you won't have to mess with it. And the last option we're going to go through is actually what we use here at Cornerstone, which is Firefox. Firefox is a pretty decent browser, and I really like it, actually. It's what I use on my phone. It's what I use on my personal PC. So for the rest of the presentation, after I go through Chrome and Edge, we're going to be operating in Firefox. But real quick, I'm going to open up Chrome here in a second, but I kind of want to cover why I recommend people shy away from it. And the real reason, here, I'm going to pop it up on our screen here, is actually this screenshot. This is what it says when you actually try to install Chrome from any browser. You can do that from Internet Explorer as well. Just go to google.com if it's available for your version of Internet Explorer. One of the things I noticed when I tried to do that on Internet Explorer is it actually was no longer compatible with Google. So you might have to use Bing or some other search engine to find the download link for Chrome or Firefox. But when you go to download Chrome, it'll show you this pop-up. It says, by downloading Chrome, you agree to the Google Terms of Service, Chrome and Chrome OS additional terms of service. You can also choose to make it better by automatically sending crash statistics and reports if your Chrome browser crashes. And then you can accept and download. And most people would just click the button, hit accept and download, and not think about it at all. But the reason I don't like it is actually because of something that their terms of service say, which they don't actually show you directly. And you don't have to click on it to get into it. But the exact quote here that Jeff, our kind of in-house IT, sent us is from the document. It says, it allows Google to analyze your content. This analysis occurs as the content is sent, received, and when it is stored. This license allows Google to host, reproduce, distribute, communicate, and use your content, modify and create derivative works based on your content, such as reformatting or translating it, and sub-license rights also extend to any services that are going to, they need to edit to work as designed, or contractors who have signed agreements with us that are consistent with those terms, and this license lasts forever. And that's just from downloading it. You don't have to install the program. You don't have to even open up, the actual program to actually get this agreement to be in effect. You just have to download it. What that means is anything that goes through the Chrome browser is fair game for them to record, edit, mess around with, save, make derivative works of, and just use however they want. That means that if you're an artist and you upload art to like your Instagram through Google Chrome, they now have the ability to take it, reformat it, edit it, print it onto t-shirts, sell it, do whatever they want. This, in our world, more for insurance brokers, also means that they're collecting data on everything you type into that browser. And that includes anything you're typing into a quote unquote secure portal that's using Chrome, which is why we don't use it here. Google has complied with pretty much every HIPAA regulation. It's not like it's a big hole if you're using it, but it's something to keep in mind. And it's possible that, they could be recording information that they really shouldn't be. And that's why we don't use Google Chrome here at Cornerstone. I just wanted to kind of point that out and mention it before we get into Chrome, because a lot of people use it and don't understand that that's what Google is actually doing. The other reason I don't recommend using Chrome is because it hogs your RAM, or at least it used to. They've shown that Chrome is not going to eat up a bunch of your RAM now. And for translating into non-techie, what that means is it's your ability to multitask. If you have a bunch of Chrome browser tabs open, then it's going to start slowing down your computer pretty dramatically. And that's the same sort of thing with a lot of web browsers. But Chrome is pretty bad about it. It's difficult to multitask if you have a bunch of Chrome windows open, and it's because it's eating up a lot of your RAM space on your computer. So now aside from that, there are positives with it, and there are reasons why people use it. I've opened up Chrome here now, and as you can see, it's a pretty simplistic view. It's very straightforward, very easily laid out. It opens to your home screen as Google automatically, and that's no surprise. Google is the one who made the browser. But this is pretty much how you are when you start off with it. You can sign into your Google account, which gives them a lot more information about you, but also opens up a few more technical options. It allows you to link directly to your, forget what exactly it's called, but Chrome's cloud-based server storage as well if you sign into that. So that's kind of nifty. In addition, you can show a side panel here. And that side panel option is just the default option in Chrome when you install it. A lot of organizations disable it, but it has kind of like a dashboard as well as your bookmarks tab here. Now, I've already imported my bookmarks from Internet Explorer when I was trying to do the sample of this. But if you personally wanted to import information from Internet Explorer into Chrome and you're already comfortable with Chrome and using it, then it's pretty easy to do. All you got to do is hit these 3 buttons up over here. Then you can go to Bookmarks right over here, and then import Bookmarks and Settings. It'll automatically jump you to the settings page here on Google Chrome, and then you can choose which browser you want to transfer data over from. You would choose Internet Explorer. Make sure you transfer your browsing history and bookmarks and favorites. And you can also choose to import your search engines. All that does is it imports all of your preset search engine settings. So if you use Bing or DuckDuckGo over Google, then it'll automatically update that by using your search engine settings here. And then you can hit import, and you're done. You can also do this manually. And the way you would do that is you would go to the bookmark section again, and then go to Import Bookmarks and Settings. But instead of choosing one of these options, you're going to choose Bookmarks HTML file. You're going to choose Favorites and Bookmarks, and then choose File. Now, one of the things that I will note, and this is a little laughable, if you're transferring over from Internet Explorer, you're not even going to see it on your desktop. And the reason for that is because HTML files are kind of the standard, but Internet Explorer exports in HTM, which is kind of the same thing. It's just a different file extension. The problem is Chrome doesn't actually recognize it as a valid HTML file. And if you click on the drop down here, my computer is configured for Firefox for HTML files. So that's also part of the reason why I can't see it. Your mileage may vary, and you may actually be able to see it if you try to do that manual import, but it's just something to note. You can also do the same sort of thing with your cookies. Just instead of going to bookmarks, you would have to go into your base settings as well and do that the same way. You can sync Google services, customize your Chrome profile as well, and import bookmarks and settings from this menu as well. But now I want to show you how to actually get into those settings just in general. So we're going to go back to our home page, which is the Chrome tab. And if you can't tell, I'm not used to Chrome because I don't normally use it. So my apologies if I'm a little bit clunky with it. But what you're going to do is to get into your deeper settings. If you want to change and modify how things open, if you have a home page you might want to open or do something else, then you're going to click on these 3 dots. They act as kind of the overall menu for Chrome. And a lot of browsers nowadays have kind of incorporated that pattern. In the upper right-hand corner, they tend to have 3 dots, 3 lines, a thing that says like file or menu. All of those features are kind of general browser use features, and it's pretty nice actually to be able to get into the settings this way. I'm going to hit on settings, and then I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit about what this has on the left-hand side. First, there's You and Google. You and Google is the default page that we were at originally when we started on these settings. You can turn on sync, and what that does is if you use Chrome on your phone and on your computer, then it'll sync those settings across all of your devices that are logged into Chrome. That's one of the benefits of logging into a Chrome account, although it's personally, I don't bother with it if I were using Chrome. It just lets Google collect more data on you, but I'm a little bit worried about those kinds of things just because I'm a techie. You can also sync your Google services across all the devices, and you can actually choose by clicking on the drop-down all of the Google services that you're going to be available or have available to sync. Then you can also do your autocompletes or searches. You could send the crash reports from here as well. Make searches and browsing better by sending URLs of pages you visit to Google if you want to share that much with them. And you can also get an enhanced spell checker from Chrome. It sends the text you type into the browser directly to Google. Not that it's not doing that already anyway, but it's leveraging that functionality to kind of help you a little bit more. And you can turn all of that on from the You and Google homepage. Additionally, if you wanted to look at your passwords and log additional things, you can go to autofill. Autofill is kind of the standard language for save my passwords and record my information. Google has the ability to store your passwords along with your payment methods. So you can enter credit card information, it'll save that, and even addresses. So you can sync it with Google Maps and save all of that information there. The way you would do passwords, however, which is really what I'm going to mainly show you, is you can manually click add. It'll also work the same way as Internet Explorer. You can just go to a web page and start typing it in, and it'll prompt you to see if you want to save your password. That's what the top option here means. But you can also manually add them in from the previous view that we had by clicking add here, entering a URL like www.crnstone.com. And then typing in a username like test and a password like sample, like I just typed. And I'm gonna show you that too. Now, our main website doesn't actually have any login information, so I didn't actually share anything secure there. But it's something to keep in mind that you can manually do this. Also, as you go through the sites and you have Google save your login data, this is actually where you can go to view that. So if you're trying to log in and you can't see a password, or you just need a quick reference of what your login for a site is, you can do that by going here. If you click on this view icon for the first time, then it'll prompt you to enter your Windows password. And once you do, it'll show you the password that you have typed. And then you can do that for any site you had typed in. You just have to do it once while the browser's open. You can also get into privacy and security settings. And this is where you can do things like clear your cookies, enter additional site data, and clear your browsing history, things of that nature. You can also control your security measures and how in-depth you want to get with that. And the last thing I'm going to mainly cover is appearance settings. This is kind of one of the big open benefits of Chrome, but it's also something that Firefox and Microsoft Edge do as well. It allows you to change your theme through their web store. And Google Chrome does have its own built-in web store. That's the Chrome store. If you use Android devices, you've probably interacted with it before. All you have to do is hit this little icon here. It'll jump you over to the web store, and you'll be able to enter things of that nature there, change your appearance, download apps and extensions, and all of that fun stuff. But we're mostly going to go on now. The one other thing I want to mention is if you want to change your default browser to Chrome, which you're going to want to do if you're switching away from Internet Explorer, you're going to want to click on the default browser option down here in settings and then make default. It'll also prompt you to do that if you open up Chrome and it's not already your default browser. Almost every internet browser will do that. So you don't have to memorize where this is, just something I thought I'd mention. Oh, and finally, on startup, you can go here to change your home page to pretty much whatever you want whenever you open. I like to go to open a specific page, add new page, go to www.crnstone.com, hit add, and now it'll open to Chrome on startup. We're just gonna close out or I'm sorry, it'll open to Cornerstone's main site when you open it up. And as you can see, just by reopening Chrome, I now have it here. You can also favorite things by hitting the bookmark tab here in the star. And you also have access to folders. They work pretty much exactly the same way as Firefox folders do. So we'll cover that more in depth when we get into Firefox. After Chrome, we're going to go through Microsoft Edge. And Edge is going to be the new default browser for Windows 10. It's actually really nice, and it's kind of based off of Google Chrome. One of the things Google did a few years back, don't ask me for an exact year, is they opened up their Chromium engine, which is what Google Chrome uses as an internet browser, to pretty much anyone, and they allowed them to take that information and make their own browsers. Now, part of that Chromium agreement is to share some data with Google. They don't have access to all of the same sort of things that you would from Google Chrome, but they do share some data to Google. And because this is a Microsoft browser, Microsoft's going to gather most of the information you put into it. It's just something to be aware of, but because it's default part of the Windows 10 environment, you're probably not giving them anything much more in depth than you would just by using their browser, or not browser, I'm sorry, their Windows 10 or Windows 11 if you're using Windows 11. So let's go ahead and open it up and take a look. As you can see, when you open it up, it automatically opens to this MSN page. This is the Microsoft new tab option by default, and you can edit those settings, and we'll get into how to do that here in a second. But I just kind of wanted to show overall the similarities in the browser. Don't look at the actual web page itself, and we're actually going to go to Google to show you kind of a default what the difference in the page looks like. Google obviously recommends using Chrome, but the main difference here is just kind of the way things look. If you click over here, you can get into tab actions, which is a quick way to get into kind of some of the better features of this browser, Edge. You can also favorite pages the same way you would in pretty much any other browser. Click on the star setting, and like I said, we'll get into how to do that more in depth in Firefox. But that's how you would favorite a page. You can also get into your favorite settings up over here. And this is kind of like the fully built-in favorites bar. And one of the unique things about this browser is collections. Collections are really useful for things like doing research. So if you're trying to grab a bunch of little bits of information from a bunch of different websites, collections is kind of how you would do it. Think of it kind of as like a clipboard. So like you've got, or maybe a scrapbook, where you can take little snippets of a bunch of different sites and kind of put them all into different collections. If I click on my snippets here, these are some that I pre-made. We have a link to what are collections in Microsoft Edge. And if I click on that there, it shows the Bing search result for how to get to collections and kind of more about what they are. In addition, if I click on my collections and go back into my snippets, if I click on this little snippet of text that I have from Cornerstone, Cornerstone's main website, it'll jump me right to here and show the text that I have highlighted, which is pretty useful, I'd say, because if you want to, maybe record a specific piece of information from a website, that's how you would do it and get back to it incredibly quickly. The way you can add to those is, let's just go ahead and highlight this cost section here. You highlight the text you want to add to collections, right-click on it, hit Add to Collections, and then you can either add it to pre-existing ones, or you can start a new one. It'll automatically just start a new collection up here. And if you click in it in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to automatically title it by the date that you started that collection. If you right-click it, you can hit Edit Collection, and you can change that there. I'm going to change this to Sample. And now I have a new sample collection as well. I'm going to go ahead and add something more to that. I'm going to highlight this section of text, right-click, go over Add to Collections. I'm going to hover, and I can add that sample as well. So that's just a real quick and easy way using this specific browser, how you can get a bunch of notes from a web page without having to say open up Microsoft Word and manually type out all of your notes. It's a pretty unique feature and one of the best things that I like about the new version of Microsoft Edge. One thing to note, if you're operating on a very old Windows 10 PC, you will probably have Edge installed, but it'll look completely different. The icon for this one is kind of a swirl, but if I type Edge in here, it actually isn't showing because this computer is pretty fully updated. But it kind of has the old Internet Explorer logo, but it's a little bit darker. That's kind of the original version of Edge, and they tried to modify Internet Explorer to work with some of the newer features coming out, but it didn't go over well. So that's why they launched this new version of Edge, and I'd highly recommend trying it if you haven't already. If you wanted to transfer over your bookmarks and other things, you would go up here to this three-dot icon, and then you could go into settings to get to bookmarks. But the quickest way to do it, I've found, is to go into these favorite settings here, then hit the triple option here, import favorites, and then it'll jump you into the import settings from the actual main feature. Looks exactly like Chrome's import setting because it literally is Chrome's import setting. We're going to go ahead and import from Internet Explorer. We'll click everything, and now everything's brought over. One of the unique things about this browser is it'll automatically transfer over all of your Windows passwords as well, or the ones from Internet Explorer. You won't have to do that manual moving over anything. And the reason for that is because it's built into the base operating system. So that's pretty useful as well. One of the other things that you can do is if you go to that and do the import, you can also do it manually from Internet Explorer. We're going to go ahead and go to import favorites again. And this time, instead of Mozilla Firefox, we're going to import from an HTML file. We're going to choose a file, go to desktop, and we're running into the exact same problem on this one. But that's how you could do it manually as well if you didn't have Firefox fully configured and it wasn't interacting wrong. This is actually really strange because I did this yesterday and it was completely fine. But then you can get into settings here by going to the triple dots up here and hitting settings. And that's how you get into the settings for this browser. You can log into Microsoft and start earning rewards if you search with Bing, which is actually pretty nice. I use Bing as my default browser. And the reason I do that is because as you search, it'll store up points. And you can choose to donate those points to worthy causes. So I like it because it forces Microsoft to actually give money to nonprofits and other things. But it's one of the features of this browser that you can just do it automatically through the settings. You can also choose how to save passwords here. Works exactly the same as Chrome. You can choose to save them automatically, choose to enter a device password before you autofill passwords on websites, or you can enter a custom password if you choose this option here. You can also manually add passwords by clicking on the Add Password setting here as well. You can also enter payment info just like in Chrome, and you can also import your browsing data just under the profiles under settings. What that does, and we're going to go ahead and choose what to import. You open up the exact same browser window that we just had. You can also, like I said, import your passwords. You can import them as a CSV, and you can import them from just a chosen search engine. Additionally, you can edit those same appearance settings that you would in Chrome right up over here. You can find themes on the actual App Store here that's built in. That's basically the exact same App Store as Google Chrome, but it's kind of a little bit custom. So if you're going to add any add-ons, I would do it through these settings here. You can also change your home page and startup menu options from the Start Home and New Tabs option. One thing to note, though, is your home page is not the same thing as your startup page in this browser. You can see under here where it says when Edge starts. It'll start by automatically opening a new tab page. You can also choose to open the tabs from your previous session, or what I choose is open a specific set of pages. You can then hit Add New Page. We're going to hit www.crnstone.com, hit Add, and now I'm going to close out of the browser. When I reopen Edge, it will open to Cornerstone's homepage, as you can see. Now, if I wanted to change that back, I'm going to go back into my settings, click on the triple option there, and hit Settings. Then I'm going to go back into the Start, Home, and New tabs, and I'm going to delete this option, and it automatically goes back to the Open a New tab setting. Let's say I wanted to change my home option. I'm going to enter www.crnstone.com, hit Save, and I want it to show the home icon, which is right up here. If I turned this off, my home icon would go away, but I'm going to turn it on and have that set to the cornerstone.com setting. And I close out, and when I reopen Edge, it'll open to the new tab setting like it did before. But if I hit Home, it's going to jump me to cornerstone.com, and that's because I just manually set it that way. If I go back into my settings and change it back, I can pretty much change it to whatever I want, really, just by editing things under this Home, Start, and New Tabs option. You can also choose which page it opens when you do a new tab right over here. If you hit Customize, then you can customize your tab page. We're going to go back into Settings, just cover one or two smaller other options. If you're trying to edit your cookies and site permissions, you can do that here from this menu. That's where you would go to delete your cookies. If someone says, oh, you need to do that to try to get in, that's one way to do it. And you can also make things your default browser by clicking on this setting here. There are a whole host of other settings that come with Edge that I really like as well. One of the main ones that I really enjoy is actually the automatic setup for printers option. That's pretty neat, as well as having different family settings and adding in different restrictions built into the browser. So that way you don't have to download any other software for it. I really enjoy it. It's a great browser, and it's a good way to, or a good thing to switch away from. Or switch to if you're coming from Internet Explorer. It'll be pretty intuitive. Now, the last browser we're going to cover is personally my favorite, and that's Firefox. The reason I like it so much is because they're actually very concerned with data privacy, and any information that they gather, they don't share to third outside parties. If they do, it's only specific developers and for very specific requests. I think you have to go through a pretty long process to even request information from them. But the browser itself is pretty much entirely focused around privacy. There have been a few minor concerns with it over the last few months, but nothing excessive. When you open it up, it looks pretty much the same as almost any other internet browser. Yours might look a little bit differently. I have mine set to dark mode just because it matches pretty much all the settings that I have with my browsing stuff set up from, Windows 10, but it's something good to keep in mind. From here, if you wanted to import your bookmarks, you could click on this triple drop down here, go to Bookmarks, and as you can look through here, you can go to Manage Bookmarks. When you do that, it opens up this Bookmarks pane, and you can hit Import and Backup here. Import bookmarks from an HTML file right here. That's how you would import the HTMLs from manual options, and as you can see, it's actually popping up here as Internet Explorer. That probably is my default settings on this computer, but for you, if you're not getting it, Firefox actually detects that manual export setting. But most people probably won't want to do that. What you'll probably want to do is hit Import and Backup, import bookmarks from another browser, and you can choose Edge, Edge Legacy, which is original Edge, I kind of mentioned that, and Internet Explorer, or Chrome. It automatically populates this with whatever browser you have. Then you can choose what you want to transfer over. This one also allows you to transfer over your saved logins and passwords as well directly through this wizard. And once you've done that, it'll say it's complete. and you can hit finish. And that's all you have to do to start moving over to Firefox. Additionally, it'll probably prompt you up here for how to make it your default browser, and you can get into bookmark settings with the star icon, pretty much the same as all the other browsers we've covered. One of the things that I actually really recommend about Bookmarks, and you can do this in all of the other versions too, as you can see, this one looks pretty similar, but you can tag it. And what that does is if you have a lot of bookmarks and you're trying to sort through them real quick, you can tag things like a search engine and then Google. I separate that with a semicolon. I'm going to hit save here. When I do that, if I hit my bookmark settings up here, so I'm going to settings, bookmarks, and I needed to search through my bookmarks, could hit search bookmarks, and then type search engine. And as you can see, it's pulling the search engine text up here to populate it with Google. One of the other things that you can do with bookmarks here is you can actually make bookmark folders. If you don't like searching through your bookmarks like that, that's really one of the things I recommend. One of the ways you can do that is by going into bookmarks and then entering manage bookmarks. And as you can see, this kind of looks a little bit like the Windows File Explorer. You can add other folders by right-clicking and then hitting add folder. Let's call this sample. And if I click on the drop down here, I have my sample under the bookmarks menu right here. Let's go to another website. Just off the top of my head, let's go to, actually, let's go to AGB. You're going to log in with www.agbohio.com. And as you can see, I don't have this bookmarked, but I do have some saved password data. That's because here in a moment, I'm going to show you how to access passwords in here as well. But let's say I wanted to bookmark this page. I would hit the star for the bookmarks. I could enter whatever tags I want. So let's say Cornerstone statements. And then from this drop down here, I can choose where I want to save this. I'm going to go to Bookmarks menu. And if I'm going to hit this drop down here, click under that, I can choose my sample folder. I'm going to double click that and then hit save. And now I have this saved under my sample folder. To show you that, I'm going to go into my bookmark settings, manage bookmarks. If I click on sample here, I now have the AGB homepage saved. And also, if I wanted to search through my bookmarks, I can go to bookmarks, search bookmarks, and type Cornerstone. And the AGB Ohio pops up with that Cornerstone statements tag. That's something that you could do in pretty much any browser that we've shown. They operate incredibly similarly. So everything I just showed you in this browser pretty much is the exact same way you'd use it in Chrome or Edge. So that's something to keep in mind. Additionally, you can also get into more advanced settings here as well. If I click on this 3-line option and hit settings, then I can jump up here into the settings menu of Mozilla Firefox. That allows you to edit some general settings. Startup is kind of where you would edit what you want to do when you open up everything. You can choose to restore your previous session, or you can always check if Firefox is your default browser. I'm going to unclick that, but that tells you how to set it as your default browser. You can also hit just make default, and it'll open up your Windows 10 settings for default apps. Web browser here, it says Firefox, so I know I'm fine. Then in addition to that, you can edit tabs down here. You can open links in tabs instead of new windows, which is what I like, because you can, whenever you click on a link, just get a new tab open and it'll show you where that is. And if you're going through a bunch of Google searches, you can just click back to the main tab on Google and continue opening links. You can also choose to, when you open a link, image or media tab, switch to it immediately, show previous tabs and other advanced settings. As we scroll down here, you can also edit the language and text styles here as well. I'm going to just choose Bakersville Old Face right here, just as a default, but it really doesn't change much. It just changes the text that it's actually showing in the web menu. You can also change the font color here. You can also choose the zoom if you think it's just a little small. You could advance the zoom maybe to 150%. And that'll zoom in a lot closer on web pages, so you'll be able to see things a lot more close up. You can also choose to only zoom text when you do this, and that just makes the text bigger. It doesn't actually condense the web page. You can also change your language settings from here as well and change where your downloads go to. When you download a file, you'll see a little download icon pop up right here. And if you click on it, it'll show you where it's saved to and you can open it up from there. That's the same with pretty much every browser that I've shown you so far, by the way. You can also get into specific applications, manage other copyright settings, and make sure you can update your system manually here, as well as going through some browsing settings from general. Home is actually where you would go to change your home page and what would actually pop up when you hit home. I'm going to change, or this homepage right now is google.com, but I'm going to go ahead and actually change it to www.crnstone.com. And now that I've done that, whenever I hit the home icon here, it'll jump back to Cornerstone. As you can see, that's what just loaded up. One thing to note, when I close out of my Firefox window and I reopen it here, I set my home page to cornerstone.com. So now it automatically opens to cornerstone.com. This web browser actually doesn't differentiate between your home page and what page opens up initially when you do things. So it's a little bit easier to control what exactly happens with the web browser. I kind of like it because I like my home page to be whatever I open things up to. But if you don't like that setting, then I can understand that as well. I'm going to go back into my home settings and change it back to Google. And then for new tabs, you can choose to use Firefox Home or to set a blank page. I don't really care either way. I normally leave it at Firefox Home. You can also edit a lot more of your content from this page here for your home window. Then you have different search settings. Ours is being managed by our organization, so I can't change really everything that I normally would be able to. But this way, if you just start typing in the search bar, which is right up here, you can do searches. I like to actually use this top setting, which is just use the address bar for search and navigation. It means that if I just type in a search into this search bar right here, I don't have to worry about a separate thing to search through. I can just start typing. You can also change your default search engine from the search settings here. We use Google here. It's just a pretty good one. But you could also change to things like Bing, DuckDuckGo. You can search Amazon automatically. All of that from this menu setting. And it also has a bunch of different shortcuts down here for searches. And lastly, you have privacy and security. Privacy and security is pretty much the best part about this browser. I like to choose standard, but you can get more specific about things as well. As you can see, they have a strict and then a custom option about how to block things. You can choose strict, which is stronger protection, but it might break some sites. And what that's really saying is it's not letting cookies track everything you do online. That's kind of more of an in-depth topic that we're not going to have time for in this webinar, but it's pretty useful if you want to be very, very locked down about the different trackers and things that are watching your movement online. And you can also customize this as well using a custom setting and say, oh, I only want this thing to track me, or oh, I like cookies because a lot of my websites use cookies, but I don't want any crypto miners, trying to track me, or fingerprinters or whatever else. So that's how you would edit those settings there. You can also get to the saved logins from the privacy and security tab as well. Let's say you wanted to add a new one. You would go to the logins and password setting under privacy and security and hit save logins. Now, I automatically saved one right up here, but typically it's going to show you all of the different ones that you have from logging in here. I have my GoToMeeting login saved as well, which I'm not going to click on because I don't want to show off that password, but it works the same as everything else. You just hit, copy here if you need to copy the password, or if you wanted to look at the password itself, you'd click on the I. You can also manually add different logins from the other window if you're moving over from Internet Explorer by clicking Create New Login, entering a web address like www.crnstone.com, and then entering your username and password here. I'm going to cancel out now. And then the last real unique thing about Firefox is it doesn't actually access the same add-on and extension store as Chrome. There are patches to allow Chrome add-ons, but Firefox is pretty restrictive about what they allow into their store and about what they allow people to use. It's better for individual third-party app developers because you don't have as rigorous a screening process as Google, but they still manage to, weed out any bad actors. Just be careful about what you add on Firefox. They're not as scrupulous as Google about what gets added, but it's kind of a trade-off. If they're better about reviewing for malicious activity, but they don't always have those restrictions up front. So just be cautious about what you add if you're trying to get add-ons. Lastly, I'm going to end with a few different tips and tricks for how to stay secure online. And really what I want to mention is just how to figure out what to click when you're Googling things. That's really the best way that you can stay secure, is just making sure you're not clicking on things that'll give you viruses. If we go to Google, and then we're going to just search Cornerstone, then as you can see, it pops up with a lot of different things. Cornerstone On Demand is right up here. Because of my proximity that it's detecting, it's also showing me, our web address, things of that nature. Normally stuff up here is fine to click on, but let's say you get a little bit below that and you're getting into the areas of, other generic search results. If you hover over a URL, it'll always have a tiny little pop-up in the bottom left-hand corner. And that pop-up will actually show you what the web address it's linking to is. I'm not sure if you can see it, but go ahead and keep an eye. I'm going to go ahead and draw right in here on this section of my screen. You might be able to see it, you might not. It's one of those things that I'm not sure it's actually showing. But if you hover over a link, it'll tell you exactly where it's linking to. Google should be telling you where things are linking to, but that's what that little section up here is supposed to be saying. But sometimes it's not always accurate, and especially if they're doing, ads, like some of these top options on some of our other search results might show, it'll actually route you through like Google Ads and other things. So as long as when you're hovering over, it pops up with the same domain, that's what comes before .com, as the website you're trying to click on, that's a good way to stay a little bit secure. Also, make sure you're only clicking on reputable sources. If you're trying to find things online and you're not sure about clicking it, just contact your IT person. They'd much rather you send a question to them than actually have to uninstall a virus and check a system and make sure everything's okay. So that's really what I'd recommend with mainly searches, clicks, and how to stay secure online. At this point, I'm kind of just going to open up to questions. That really kind of covers what you'd need to know about switching away from Internet Explorer, how to stay a little bit more secure and know a bit more about what data is being collected on you, and just a few different options for web browsers. There are a lot of other web browsers as well, and everyone kind of has their favorites, and it's not like there's a best browser out there, but those are some of the ones that I'd recommend switching to as Internet Explorer is fully phased out. Once again, if you don't switch browsers before the 15th, which is tomorrow, you're going to have a very bad time, and you're going to start seeing a lot of site errors. So that's just something that I would keep in mind and be ready to switch away from. Once again, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is displayed on screen along with my email address. It's tlevine@sierrandstone.com. And as always, I hope you've had a great Tech Tuesday.